Light the beam. It's time for Nerdy for 30, the podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish movies for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer, a.k.a. The Critic's Choice. With me, as always, is my co-host Tim Keck, a.k.a. The People's Champ.
I love this movie.
He loves this movie because today we are talking about Batman from 1989. In advance of The Flash's release, we wanted to go back to look at the person that seems like they're actually going to be the star of this movie. Tim, upon rewatching this movie, what did you think? And when was the last time you saw this movie before we rewatched it for the pod?
I mean, it must have been like a year ago or something. I feel like I watched this. I've seen this movie a ton. Probably one of the movies I've seen the most. As a kid, I was allowed to watch it. So we had a VHS and I destroyed that thing. You know, I started watching it here and, you know, poor roommate Pat had to listen to me say every line in unison for like the first half hour. I think it's so quotable and so funny and so weird and so intentional. Like all of the dialogue is kind of, I think I'd used, you know, described Transformers last week as pulling up a bunch of weird quotes from a poster.
Yeah.
But this feels like they're writing for a comic book and every line of dialogue is quotable or like a cliche of some kind or interesting. This whole movie feels very intentional. Whether or not you like it or not, they're making choices the whole time. This is my favorite Bruce Wayne. Maybe not my favorite Batman, but it's up there. And, you know, Jack Nicholson crushes it. I love Michael Keaton. This movie, I love this movie. I think I'm biased, probably still watching it through the lens of being a little kid, but that's what movies are for, man. I love this thing. I think it's great. What about you?
Oh, that's wonderful. You know, this is only the second time I've ever seen this movie. The
Whoa.
first time I ever saw it was about 2 years ago in 2021. I'd never seen this. This was a huge gap for me. I had seen all the other Batman movies, but this one, for whatever reason, I'd never seen. When we finally watched it and when we came back to it this past weekend, I'm still struck by how specific of a movie it is. I mean, it's Tim Burton and it's early Tim Burton. Yeah. And I feel like Beetlejuice is this massive swing of a movie and it hits so hard. Like that movie is absolutely phenomenal. Every single piece of it is phenomenal. And I feel like he brought all of that heat into Batman, but he also showed us a little bit of a different side of Burton, which was like a crucial move for him as a director because the tone of this is so different from the tone of Beetlejuice, you know?
What way do you think it's different from Beetlejuice? I haven't seen Beetlejuice in a while, so might have to refresh me.
So Beetlejuice is so, I mean, there's, you know, he's a demon and there's ghouls and you go to the afterlife, but it's so goofy. There's a bunch of like shrunken heads that talk and people that want to stretch their faces into scary things. So they stretch them into these really goofy shapes and it's dark, but it's also very colorful. And by contrast,
which is kind of his MO, I think.
Yeah. But by contrast, this version of Gotham is so bleak, so industrial. And it's interesting. I was reading a little bit about the production design of this because it's fascinating. It looks so good. This entire movie looks so good and feels like this world. It feels like a movie set came to life. And I guess one of the big things was that the people working on the production of the movie were forbidden from watching the movie Blade Runner because they did not want neon to factor into this whatsoever because they didn't want any of the hope or color that neon provided to play into this movie at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you feel that it's dark, it's dreary, it's desolate. Honestly, the whole movie you're asking, why is he trying to save Gotham? Like Gotham doesn't seem like it deserves to be saved. They show up. The Joker murders a ton of people. He goes on TV, announces he did it. Then he says, actually, I'm a good guy now. I'm going to dump a bunch of cash on the crowd. And people come out in droves to support him. Like, this sucks. Like, it sucks how easy everyone is manipulated. The city's dark and crusty and they're dealing with crime and for some reason they can't stop it. But then also all the cops are in like weird leather uniforms, you know? And The Joker gang is like wearing these kind of corny jackets that have the emblem on it. Like immediately the Joker's got merch. Like the second he goes in that vat, he gets out and he's scheming for his logo. He's like, what car can I drive? I need a gun that's long that I can just push in. He has so many dumb gadgets. It's so cartoonish in so many ways, but yet grounded and dreary kind of the whole time. And I think the dichotomy of that is great. And honestly, where it peaks.
It's amazing. I mean, the feel of this movie, there are times where you can't tell if it's the 80s or like a bizarro 1950s, because it feels like you just took that like Art Deco resurgence from the 30s and 40s, or I guess just, Art Deco existence from the 30s and 40s, and just wrote it forward a little bit more to its logical conclusion. And like I said, like the cops kind of look like 1950s street toughs with those leather jackets. It also, I think in the 80s, there was like a 1950s, the same way that, there's a lot of people wearing early 2000s stuff now. I think in the 80s, there was kind of that like 50s throwback thing happening. So it feels like that was probably very intentional. But it works so well for this character and this kind of dated idea of this vigilante that can, swing through the streets and bring crime to justice with his own two hands.
I love in this movie, I love Lieutenant Akart at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I feel like he sets a very, he's a weird crucial character who's barely in the movie because he sets the tone immediately. He is like this bloated, disgusting man who is dressed like an old school detective, like like a washed up Dick Tracy. And he's a dirty cop and everyone knows he's a dirty cop. And the police commissioner even turns to him at one point and says, like, I'm not Carl Grissom or whatever. Like, I know you're working for this guy. This is me taking over now. And he has this interaction with Jack Nicholson where he's like, they're pulling guns on each other and Jack's like unnerved and Cart's like shook up and he's just pitching him 100 miles an hour. And when he gets and then Jack shoots him and he looks up at him. He's like, hey, Cart. And Cart looks up and is just like so fucking over it. Like he's ready to go home. Like he's like, oh, what? And then Joker like says something cool to him and then blasts him away. What was it? Something like, oh, yeah. And then Joker even gives him he gives him a sandwich and he gives him money between two slices of bread. Amazing. Yeah. I forget what he says to him, but every cool thing that happens in this movie is accompanied by, I would say, an equal or greater line of dialogue. And the Joker says something awesome, shoots a cart, and then he gets like thrown back. And then he like the way he like slides down the wall and just his arms kind of like flap around. Yeah. It's so amazing. And the whole time I'm like, these are choices. These are big choices that he's making. The way he's thrown back, the way he's sliding, when the Joker's in there, like fucking with the lab and the machines are blowing up and there's like fans going and lights and then the waves of the paper and everything. It feels like this is all very well thought out. And he wanted a specific look. He wanted a specific vibe and he gets it. I think they crush it.
Dude, with Eckhart specifically, too, there's that moment where Knox comes up to him on the street and is like, hey, heard this looks like maybe a Batman sighting happened. What happened to these two in the ambulance? And Eckhart's like, tell them they slipped on a banana peel. Like, he throws that, like, just over it, dirty cop thing at him.
And he flicks a cigarette at him.
Yeah.
And, dude, this movie opens in an amazing way, right? They basically recreate the story of Batman, which we all know, which at the time, maybe not as popular, because this was like the first, like, I feel like big Batman movie that happened. Like, this is my Batman. This is the first one I watched. This was the guy. And they open the movie basically recreating the scene of his parents dying, right? There's a parent, there's parents, a kid walking through an alley. These people confront them. They hit the dad. They get away and they're on a rooftop splitting a wallet. And they're splitting this wallet like they just robbed a bank and like they've got so much cash. They're like, oh, I'm going to take this credit card. Like, you can cancel these cards. Like they're like, what if you keep talking, I ain't going to split this with you. And it's like, this is a fucking wallet. There's probably $20 in here. Like grow up. What are we doing? And then they're just like talking about the Batman. Like, I don't know. Are you scared of heights? Yeah, man, the bat. What if the bat gets him? The bat? What are you talking about? You know? And then Batman just like walks in. They shoot him. He gets up. He's got the cape. It's so corny and so, again, so intentional. And it's just the best introduction to Batman is these guys not even debating if he's real. And then he shows up, he does his thing, and he says, I'm Batman. Tell your friends about me. I'm Batman. Iconic. Incredible. And the movie only keeps going. There's like 90 more minutes after that. 2 hours after that. I don't know. It's God damn it. I love this movie. It's great.
Let's dive into Michael Keaton.
I would love to.
He is so good. I think he's specifically incredibly good as Bruce Wayne. There is something that is so magnetic about him and so odd. You completely buy the idea that this guy has decided that the best thing for me to do with my time and my money is to dress up like a bat and take down criminals. And there's something about him that makes it seem like he could talk you into thinking that's a good idea.
It's weird. He is so awkward and somehow so magnetic, and people gravitate towards him. But then, you know, the intro to him as Bruce Wayne is Vicky Vale asking him if Bruce Wayne's around, and he's like, no, I've never heard of him, which is his attempt at a joke. But he doesn't know how to talk to people, so he delivers it weird and she walks away. And then he has this pen in his hand. I love the open. I think it's the coolest thing ever. And then she walks away and he's holding a pen. He doesn't know what to do with it, so he sticks it in a plant. And Alfred, who has been with him his whole life, knows he's going to do it because he's been taking care of this guy who is, you know, insane and weird as hell the whole time. He pulls out the pen. He catches the glass that Bruce Wayne's about to drop. And then Bruce Wayne follows these people into a dark room and just stands behind them for way too long and then says, hi, I'm Bruce Wayne. And for some reason, Vicky Vale is still like, yeah, I want to hook up with this guy. He gets a date immediately. They talked for 2 minutes. Him and Vicky Vale have a love story that makes no goddamn sense at all. They talked for 2 minutes. Somehow he asked her out. Then they come back to his place. They spend one night like hanging out, one date where Alfred is wingmanning fucking hard. Alfred wants him to get dick down more than anything. Alfred is going to bat for his guy. He is the wingman of all wingmen. He's like hyping her up. You know, like that old like stand-up comedy joke where it's like you bring a date to the comedy show, I make her laugh, and then she goes home and like she wants to like have sex or whatever because I got like the party going, you know, like I
never heard this. I have
never
no
heard
idea
that?
What you're talking about.
It's like an old hacky thing of like the date. She came, she had a great time. And now when she leaves, she's like, wow, that was great, but you didn't do anything. You sat there while I did all the good conversation. So Alfred comes in. He's telling the stories. He's crushing. He is making her laugh. He is hamming it up. He's hyping up his dude. And then he's like, yo, I got to bounce. If you guys want to, you know, do anything else, don't worry about me. And he bounces. And now Bruce Wayne is like carrying her up the stairs. And he's so fucking weird. Dude, this guy is so fucking weird. He's used to being Batman, right? He's like an NBA player. You know how these guys are like training their bodies to peak at like 8 o'clock at night? Yeah. You know, and that's what everyone's like, why are they going to the club after? Why are they going to strip clubs after? Because it's the only thing open and they just played a game and they're wired as hell right now. And how can they sleep? So Bruce Wayne hooks up with this girl. They have a good time. Then he's lying in bed awake. And his rational idea of what to do, because he needs to fill his time, is to hang upside down from some creaky ass monkey bars. And she wakes up in the middle of the night, sees him, and she's still like in on this guy. She's still like, yes, we got to do this. And then he blows her off so hard and he doesn't even know how to talk to her. He could just say, you know, it's an anniversary. That's tough for me. He can't do it. He doesn't know what to say. I mean, I could describe the whole movie like this, Kevin. It's crazy. He's so weird and so awesome in the weirdest way. And you're like, yes, if you're actually trying to think of a version of Batman, this is a messed up human being who thinks this is the most rational thing to do. He is weird. He is really Batman. Oh, don't get me started on the mask thing. My God, the Joker. The whole time the Joker's talking about makeup, I really want to talk about the Joker's makeup.
Please.
There is something so interesting to me about the Joker's makeup because he is playing a character, the Joker, that is his skin is very white now. His skin is pale. So in order to pass as a regular human being, he paints on makeup that is skin, like skin colored, right? And then they do all of these, I think like Tim Burton, like weird bits, you know, like he spits out these teeth, the cha-cha-cha, and you can kind of see that he has the teeth in his hand and like throws them on the ground, you know, and like he's taking off to simulate him wiping off the human makeup. He has clearly his white paint on this kerchief and then rubs it on his face. Yeah. So to take off the makeup, he's actually rubbing more makeup on. And I think that's weird symbolism with like the paint and the mask. And he goes on TV wearing makeup as a human being and says to the Batman, I've taken off my makeup. Let's see if you can take off yours. And he's lying. He hasn't taken his makeup off. He's put more makeup on and he's talking and Bruce Wayne is watching this. Batman isn't watching this. And Batman has put his makeup on to be Bruce Wayne. He is Batman. He wants to be Batman. All of his spare time is spent thinking about being Batman. That's his priority. Vicky Vale is like, are we going to try to be together? And he's like, I would like that, but the Joker's out there and I got to go to work. I am prioritizing Batman over you. You will always be second fiddle to Batman. And they're both their real selves being the caricatures of themselves while pretending to be this like fake guy. I don't know. It's such a good psychological analysis of Batman as a character. They completely gloss over the like don't use guns, don't kill part of Batman. They're like, no, that's stupid. Let's talk about how weird this fucking creep is. I don't know. It's like the Robert Pattinson is like trying to do what Michael Keaton succeeded at.
Yeah, there's something going on because I was just going to say they really touch on that again with the Riddler. That seems to be the connection between the Riddler and Batman, this most recent one. And honestly, I think there's a degree of it between Heath and Christian Bale in The Dark Knight, where it is that idea that Bruce Wayne has dedicated himself more to Batman than to anything else. He's completely given up on having a real life so that others can have a real life. But really, it seems to just be that this is a purpose. This is an identity, another identity that he can retreat into, where he can have the control that he lacked in his human life. Like something very traumatic happened to him at such a young age. He saw what happened when he didn't have any control, and now he's seeking having so much more control. In this movie, I think I think that's what makes Michael Keaton such a good Batman, is that it makes so much sense. He really, truly feels like someone who is having a hard time straddling that line. And not in the Robert Pattinson way where he is spray painted like, who is doing the murders on the ground with a giant question mark. That was ridiculous. But in like a real way where you look at this guy and like you said, that social awkwardness, that's our cue as an audience to realize, hey, there's something off about this guy. Like there's something actually off about this guy.
Yeah. His interactions with Vicky Vale are wild. She is so into him despite all of the red flags he is throwing up. Mm-hmm. He says, I'm going out of town. Alfred, and his one fuck up as a wingman is not backing up his boy. If she goes, I'll see you when you get back. A good wingman would be like, yeah, man, I'll see you when we get back. We're going to be gone for, who knows how long we'll be. I don't know where we're going, but it's going to be great. And also, I mean, does Alfred need to go too? Probably. I don't know. They bump into each other. They bump into each other on the street outside of this press conference that Bruce Wayne went to. Bruce Wayne gets shot in the shoulder, doesn't even register.
Nothing.
Doesn't even blink, doesn't change pace. He's so absorbed in the Joker and this rationalization that he is the guy who killed his own parents. And this takes priority over everything. He's not good at pretending to be Bruce Wayne. He gets shot, doesn't even think about it. Vicky Vale is there. She comes up to him and goes, what's going on? And he can't even look at her. He can't register that she is there. He is so absorbed with this thing. He says nothing and he leaves. And just having watched this movie so many times, I'm like, this was a choice. This was a great choice. and it seems kind of subtle and it's really weird. Like, but after watching it so many times, I'm recognizing these are choices that he's made, and this is how he interprets Bruce Wayne. Meanwhile, we should talk about Jack Nicholson. Jack is just going off. He is crushing like nobody's business. He's got the craziest dialogue. He is bringing the energy to this thing that Michael Keaton does not need to. And the duality between these guys is perfect. It's fantastic.
I am so torn on Jack Nicholson. Right here is going to be the point in the podcast where your attitude turns, because the first time I watched this movie, I was so out on Jack Nicholson. I hated his Joker. And I had 31 years of people hyping how good his Joker was to me. And then I finally saw it and was just like, this is just Jack fucking around. This is Jack Nicholson taken. I saw he was paid like $9 million to do the movie, but then he also had some points, like $6 or $9 million to do the movie, but he had some points at the back end, and now it's estimated that he made like $90 million total from this role. So
his
played
contract
a real
for
savvy.
this is legendary.
It's
legendary.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson as Jack Napier, love him. Love him. This is an incredible Jack Nicholson role. But as soon as he falls in that vat, he just completely stops trying. And then this time around, I really tried to read that as a choice. This time around, I was like, what if that's the deal with his version of the Joker? You know, a lot of people were mad when this movie came out because the Joker's name isn't supposed to be known, making it Jack Napier and tying it in so directly. It's more of a backstory that he's supposed to have. So I'm choosing to view it as kind of like an Elseworlds thing, like a multiverse situation where this is just a version of the Joker pattern playing itself out. And in this world, it happened to this Jack Napier guy. And Jack Nicholson, the actor, not trying as the Joker, in a weird way, it kind of works. And I think in looking at it like that, I see what everybody else sees when they look at him and they rave about his performance, because that is kind of who the Joker would be, is someone that doesn't care and isn't taking any of this seriously. It just so happens that when I see someone not taking a movie seriously, it bites at me, because like for Jason Momoa in Fast X, I don't think he's taking it seriously. And I think it ruins the integrity of the movie. So to me, it risks the integrity of any movie where it happens. But I think maybe the Joker is the one character where you get a pass. Does that jive with your interpretation of him? Or what do you see when you look at him as the Joker?
No, it doesn't jive with me at all. I get what you're saying. I think the main problem with this is that you watched this so recently, whereas this was my Joker. I would love to, who is your Batman, or who is your Joker is Heath Ledger, right? That's the guy that you associate with the role.
I mean, I recognize that what he did is exceptional, because to a large extent, I think like my Joker from childhood is Mark Hamill. Just that Joker voice, the way that he plays the character.
Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy.
Yeah. And I mean, I grew up on those cartoons. So I think Kevin and Mark will be my Batman and Joker to some extent forever. But I also think that because of what we saw, I think it's crazy to say anything other than Heath has had the best Joker. I think it's the best interpretation of the character. It's incredible.
It's wild. It's so much grittier and real. It's just a completely different take. And I feel like it's comparing apples and oranges. They're just doing
it's so
two
different.
Completely different things. Whereas I think it's very fair to compare Michael Keaton to George Clooney, Val Kilmer. They're doing the same thing. It feels like the same kind of vein. I think comparing the Batmans makes sense. Comparing the Jokers is so far off to me. I think they're just all doing different vibes, even though it looks like in the Robert Pattinson universe, that Joker is imitating Heath Ledger. It feels like that's the new version of it.
Yeah.
And people are going to be imitating that. Jack Nicholson is more cartoonish. I think it fits with more in line with what the TV show was about, like that version of the Joker, and then what Tim Burton would be into. I think he's trying. I think he knows this is going to be a big deal, and he's doing his best. This contract he has is legendary, especially as a character who is killed off in the first movie and yet gets residuals on every other movie after that. He wants this to be a big hit. He's going to make a ton of money if this is a big hit. He is having a great time doing this, and he's going to the wall. I don't see this as him phoning it in. This is him. This is what his vision of the Joker is. This is what their united version of the Joker is. I think it makes sense. And I think him phoning it in is, I think, a misinterpretation of that. I feel similar about Jason Momoa. I feel much more strongly about the Joker in this. I think there's a way to do these characters. When I see Jason Momoa, I see an attempt at like a Joker-like character where there are real consequences. He is a real guy, and yet he's goofy and just has this. He's an eccentric as opposed to someone who isn't taking this seriously. And I think they demonstrate it better in Batman by how violent the Joker is. Like, the Joker is a criminal. He is a bad guy. He has all these goofy contraptions, but he has a flower that spits acid. He was ready to melt Vicky Vale's face off, right? Mm-hmm. He actually shows you his old girlfriend. He mutilated her face as an art project and then presented it to this woman he's trying to get with, or at least used to get to Batman as like, I don't know, to fuck with her, to endear her to him. The things he does are like really fucked up in this movie. This movie is like really dark if you keep reading into it. And I think saying that he's phoning it in as an actor, I think is inaccurate.
Okay.
But I get what you're saying, but he's definitely not phoning in. He's trying this is his vision for the character, I think.
It's tough, dude. The Prince dance is tough. And props to him for even doing that, because that's a bananas thing that they added into this movie. And I know Tim Burton was upset that it was included in there.
He was upset about the parade.
Oh, not the parade. Sorry, I mean the art museum when they play Party Man at the.
Oh, he didn't like the art museum?
No, Tim Burton didn't want that in the movie. That was put on him. I think I don't know if he just didn't want it to be a Prince track or if he didn't want the scene altogether. Should have researched that one more before dropping it in. But yeah, I do know that there's an aspect of that he was upset with.
I love it. I think it is one of the more cartoonish moments with him where they just like everyone in his crew is dancing and painting stuff and they've all bought in immediately to the Joker thing.
His crew's weird, dude.
His crew's weird. They're pretty straight laced except for that scene. So I get why there's things you wouldn't like. I think him interacting with Vicky Vale in that scene is pretty great and into it. And Batman comes in and gets to grapple out of this. Batman, by the way, 1 million gadgets, and they're all grappling hooks. He has every single thing has is a different way to shoot a rope with a hook at the end and to glide out of there. And the craziest part of this movie, Kevin, the most unbelievable part of this movie isn't that Batman kills people, which is weird. Isn't that second example? It's that he has to climb stairs at the end.
Oh my God, yeah.
The end of the movie is Batman climbing stairs. When in the history of Batman has that motherfucker ever climbed a stair? He's got 82 grappling hooks on his body at any given moment, and he can't use one to get up there. He also... I'm brushing it off as he was just in a plane crash and somehow survived and is like really shook up.
He's got his bell rung for the entire climax for sure.
Pun intended. He got his bell rung and he trips at one point. He's walking into the church and Batman trips. When have you ever seen Batman trip? I'm playing it off as he is, he just took a crash to the face and like the manliest man ever is just walking it off and he stumbles a little bit and somehow he knocks over like 18 pews like dominoes. They make the loudest noise ever. When have you ever heard of Batman making so much noise that he alerted the bad guy he was there? Never. That's not his thing. And then he takes the goddamn stairs. That's the weirdest part of this whole movie. And then somehow these guys, Joker orders a helicopter out of there for two people, he says. Yet the tower is littered with Joker cronies who are all like ninjas and doing flips and have bladed feet, which is like the only gadget that isn't a grappling hook, is like a little thing that's basically designed to counter a guy who's got two, foot-long knives on his feet, and It's weird, man. It's just a weird fucking thing, and I love it. I think it's great. But yeah, it's so fun. And then he kills the Joker at the end. Crazy he kills the Joker. God, the whole dilemma with Batman is that he won't kill the Joker. Right? That's a character I know, but he kills the Joker at the end, and it's crazy.
Maybe that's what we'll get with Michael Keaton's return as Batman at the Flash is we'll get to flash forward, no pun intended, to a world where Batman is just okay with killing. We get decisive Batman for the first time, where maybe one of the people he killed early on was an accident. And from that point forward, he's like, all right, already crossed the line. Let's keep doing it.
I love that we're seeing Michael Keaton again. I think he's great. I think he's like a top tier Marvel villain as the Vulture.
Oh yeah.
And I think he's perfect for these superhero movies. I'm a little bummed they're dropping the Flashpoint Batman story. Are you familiar with You're familiar with Flashpoint?
I am, but for the listener.
In this alternate reality that the Flash goes to, Bruce is the one that's killed in that mugging. His mother goes insane and becomes the Joker, and the father becomes Batman basically to stop his wife. So
very cool.
That's incredible. I think it's one of the coolest twists and most awesome relationships in Flashpoint. I think it's a huge draw for Flashpoint, and it's definitely a little lazy to say, hey, what celebrity can we get? And just throw them in.
Well, they did do a hint at it because in one of the earlier movies that showed Ben Affleck's Batman, they had a flashback and we saw that Thomas Wayne was played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, which is a big name to throw in if it's going to be a 5-second cameo, which immediately led a bunch of people to go like, oh shit, they're going to do Flashpoint at some point, because Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Batman, very cool. That would be a very cool casting thing to see. And actually, Tim, we've briefly touched on this, but let's do a quick Batman rank down.
Let's do it.
Let's do it like we did for Spider-Man, where it's like, what's your Batman ranking and what's your Bruce Wayne ranking?
Bruce Wayne, I think it is Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, Christian Bale, I think are the big three for me. As Bruce Wayne, I like him the most. I guess you could say like George Clooney is very suave and cool. I don't love that version of Bruce Wayne as much. Val Kilmer's kind of doing a serious thing. He's like broody, but he's also kind of cool. And I miss the weirdness of some of these guys. Mm-hmm. Batman, gosh, well, let's see your Bruce Wayne. What's your Bruce Wayne real quick?
Bruce Wayne for me is probably Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton, Christian Bale.
Okay, so we've got the same three. Like that's the conversation.
Well, I think our gradient here, I think, we both have Christian Bale in at number 3. What I really like is what they did in the Christopher Nolan movies, where they show all the work that it takes for Christian Bale to maintain this playboy alter ego.
Yes.
I love the end of Batman Begins when he's acting drunk and spitefully kicks everybody out of his house as a cover. So cool. I love all the stuff he does, just showing up with supermodels all the time to convince people that he's busy just cavorting around. The entire Extraction from China subplot in The Dark Knight is insane, but the fact that he's just out on a yacht with like a ballet touring group or something at the time, like people try to go see the ballet and they can't because Bruce Wayne took all the like dancers on a boat. Crazy.
Gosh, but you convinced me. He's number 2 for me. Then I think he leaves Ben Affleck. I like Ben Affleck a lot. But yeah, Christian Bale's doing more as Bruce Wayne. What I like about Ben Affleck is that he is playing older. He is playing like tired, and like he has a weariness to him that I find incredibly compelling, and he gets it.
He's done. He's not trying to keep it separate anymore. He's the same person all the time. And I love that.
He's gone all in on this. He's not pretending anymore. And I think, Robert Pattinson's way behind. I think maybe for Batman, it might be Ben Affleck again. I love Ben Affleck's Batman. It's so cool. He's like a brawler, and it combines. I mean, Michael Keaton's Batman can't turn his head, right? It's kind of a bit in all those movies. He can't turn his neck. And then in the the Christopher Nolan ones, they're like, well, now you have a helmet, so you can. It's like a point. It's like a plot point that he can now move his neck when he fights, and his gadgets are cool. They're so awesome. That's probably number 2 for me. But yeah, something about Ben Affleck's like. He's like so thick and heavy, and he's just he's a bruiser, but he also has that Christian Bale like you don't see him. He's moving quick. He's hiding. I mean, Michael Keaton is just a guy kicking.
Yeah.
So it's weird. And I think I'm excited to see like real CGI, real kick-ass Michael Keaton Batman. That's going to be great.
That'll be really
the costume
cool.
looks corny as hell, and I love it, but it's different. What about you?
Also Ben Affleck first. I am going Robert Pattinson's Batman second, because the thing they really locked in with the Matt Reeves movie is that when his Batman is beating people up, it's fucking scary. Like, they take it from the angle of he's supposed to scare criminals to Batman is the kind of guy who goes too far in a fight and somebody ends up with like a liquefied jaw. Like that opening scene when the gang is like on the train platform, he just fucking disintegrates a guy, just punches a guy into dust. And as soon as I saw that in the trailer, I was like, that's really fucking cool. I'm in on that.
Yeah, it is cool. Maybe his time as Bruce Wayne, all of his time without the mask, I'm not a big fan of.
Same here. He hasn't given us enough yet.
And I think that movie isn't great, and it doesn't give Batman a lot to do. And Batman doesn't really do anything in the movie. He beats guys up. He doesn't solve anything. So it's kind of a pointless movie where it's a backdoor pilot for the Penguin HBO, I guess. I don't know what that movie's about. Maybe I have to rewatch it. His costume's cool. He's kicking ass. Kevin, big question for you. I don't know if we even have time for this, but yes, let's say, is it better or worse than Transformers?
It's better than Transformers.
It's better than Transformers. Is it better or worse than, let's say, Fast X?
It's better than Fast X.
Is it better or worse than Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse?
It's worse than Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh my God. I think it's better. Is it better or worse than Dungeons and Dragons?
I think it's better than Dungeons and Dragons.
It's better than Dungeons and Dragons. Better or worse than Bahubali 2? I'm going to say yes.
I don't know. I really like
slot it right in there
too. All right, put it there. We can talk through it. We'll be back here again next week. We're talking about The Flash. We will see you then. And until then, this has been Nerdy for 30. Thank you so much for listening. Stay nerdy, everybody. Bye.
Light the beam. Tell your mom.
Light that beam and tell your mom.
Stay nerdy.
Bye.
Bye. God, I love Batman.